Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is the verbatim federal courtroom testimony from the ongoing Sean Diddy Combs trial, as reported by Inner City Press Cuba. Gooding Jr. took the stand with a heavy sigh, his face aged by scandal courtroom battles and the weight of headlines that never seemed to stop. The courtroom fell silent as the once celebrated Oscar winner adjusted the microphone, his fingers trembling. Ever so slightly, he looked down trying to steady himself before raising his eyes to face the jury. This was his first time speaking publicly under oath about his ties to Diddy, and the night his own name became entangled in one of the most volatile controversies in entertainment history. "I'm not here to protect anyone anymore," he said, voice low but unwavering. "I'm here to tell the truth, even if it hurts, especially if it hurts," the prosecutor began by walking Cuba through his early interactions. With Diddy, the parties, the networking, the private invites. "I met Sean through a mutual friend in the early 2000s. Cuba said he was charismatic, powerful, and made you feel like the only person that mattered. But that charm always came with a price." Then came the moment that made the courtroom lean in the infamous yacht party, where Diddy allegedly attempted to involve Cuba in something darker. The name Lil Rod was mentioned, and Cuba's demeanor changed. His eyes dropped and his voice slowed. "I didn't know what was going on at first. I thought it was just another wild night, but something felt off. He kept saying he had something special for me." As he continued, his voice cracked with discomfort. "I remember Lil Rod being there real quiet, just watching. Diddy told him to sit next to me, told him to relax. I tried to make conversation, but he looked scared, like he didn't belong there, not like that." Cuba paused. "I didn't do anything. I never touched him, I swear to God." Raising his hand to the jury. "Whatever Diddy was planning, I wasn't a part of it, but he tried to set it up that way." The room held its breath. The prosecutor followed up quickly. "Did you feel trapped?" Cuba blinked hard. "Yes, God, yes, you don't say no." To Sean Combs, he had a way of reminding you who was in control without saying a word. He said he left early that night because something felt deeply wrong. "I've made mistakes, but never that, not that." As the testimony continued, tears welled. In Cuba's eyes, he reached for a tissue, his hand trembling. "I was in the headlines for things I did. I pled guilty. I paid settlements. I went through hell. But this wasn't me. When my name came up in this circus, I thought I'd lose my mind. I've worked my whole life, and now people think I was part of that madness. No, I'm here because I want people to hear it from me. Not a blog, not a whisper me." The prosecutor then played a recording of Lil Rod's deposition describing the incident. Cuba stared ahead solemnly as the courtroom listened. "If I ever made anyone uncomfortable, I'm sorry, but I didn't touch that kid. I didn't touch anyone at that party," he declared. "If Diddy's people are trying to use me now as a scapegoat, they picked the wrong man." The prosecutor shifted gears, asking about Cuba's broader relationship with Diddy and what he had seen at other gatherings. "It started like any other Hollywood scene, red carpet champagne connections, but then the invitations changed," he explained. "Diddy began throwing these exclusive events that not even your agent could get you into unless you had the right face or name." He recalled one party at Diddy's Miami mansion where guests surrendered their phones at the door. "That wasn't unusual, but then they handed out robes, said it was spa-themed, but once you were inside, it was like walking into another world." He hesitated, wiping his eyes. "People think I'm saying this to save myself. I'm not. I've already fallen. This is about stopping what's still happening." The room went quiet again. The prosecutor leaned in. "Did you ever see someone get hurt?" Cuba looked down and said slowly, "I heard screams. I heard crying. I saw women rushed out through back doors, but I didn't see anyone hurt with my own eyes, but we all knew." The courtroom remained still. Cuba, the same actor once adored for shouting, "Show me the money," was now weeping. Not for fame or redemption, but for the silence he'd held on to. For too long, there were certain people who never came back to those parties, women mostly. I used to think they just didn't have fun, or it got too crazy. Now I know they were probably warned, threatened, silenced when asked why he chose to testify. Now Cuba answered quietly, "Because I have a son, and because I know what happens when you stay silent. Silence doesn't protect it, only empowers monsters." He described how after his own scandals, the phone calls stopped, roles disappeared, and friendships died out. But not Sean. He still called, still invited me, and that made me wonder why. He paused, then looked directly at the jury. Because he thought I owed him. Because he thought I'd protect him like before. A photo exhibit was introduced next. From a 2013 Bahamas trip, Cuba sat next to Diddy, surrounded by blurred-out faces and scantily dressed guests. I didn't know they were that young. He said, "No one asked, no one checked, we just smiled for the camera." His voice shook as he continued. That picture haunts me because I look happy like I'm having the time of my life. But all I can think now is how many people were suffering around me. The judge called for a short recess, but Cuba remained in his chair, whispering into his hands. God forgive me. The tension in the courtroom was thick. No one spoke. Everyone just watched after the break. Cuba returned to the stand, his suit wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. This time he needed no prompting. He leaned into the mic. There's something I've never said before, not to anyone. His voice shook. One night at Diddy's LA house, something happened I couldn't unsee. It was one of those parties, the kind where everyone had to sign NDAs, people in masks, not for fun, but to protect identities. I walked into a hallway and heard a girl scream. The room froze. I thought maybe it was part of the party. But when I turned the corner, I saw a guard slam a door shut fast like he didn't want me to see inside. When he asked what was happening, the guard said, "This room's off limits, Mr. Gooding." Cuba stared forward as if reliving it. I walked away, I said nothing, and that's what haunts me most. I could have stopped something, asked questions, but I just didn't. The silence that followed held the weight of 1,000 regrets. When the lawsuits came out, when I saw those same faces again, I thought about speaking up, but who would believe me? I was already drowning in my own mess. They'd say I was just trying to survive. He took a long breath and let it hang in the room. But it wasn't just me who stayed silent. There were dozens of people at those parties, actors, athletes, producers, influencers, big names, and they all saw something, they just didn't speak either. And that's the real sickness, the silence, the shame. As the prosecutor prepared to rest, the witness Cuba leaned back, his voice growing firmer. People think Hollywood is a dream, but sometimes it's just a polished nightmare. Gripping the arms of his chair, like he was bracing for the truth to crash down on him, he added, "When the FBI raided Diddy's house, I wasn't surprised. I was relieved. I had been waiting for that day. I knew it was coming, hell. I hoped it was coming because finally someone would look behind the curtain and see what's really there, and maybe it's not too late for someone else to be saved." Cuba Gooding Jr. sat in the witness chair, his hands folded tightly as if trying to keep his soul from unraveling. He started slow, voice, low eyes, heavy. Hoped it was because if they took him down, maybe people would stop calling me crazy for what? I'd seen the prosecutor leaned in, asked if he had ever seen videos or recordings, surveillance or otherwise at any of these parties. Cuba nodded slowly. Diddy had cameras everywhere. Some were obvious, others hidden. I once asked him about it and he laughed. Said I like to keep memories, but they weren't memories, they were weapons. His voice caught, he paused. Sometimes people would leave their phones behind and Diddy would have them returned, but not before they were searched. One guy, a producer, I won't name, got blacklisted for years after one of those parties. Rumor was he threatened to go public next thing we knew. His deals vanished overnight. The prosecutor pressed again. Did Diddy ever threaten you directly? Cuba blinked, then slowly, nodded, not in so many words, but one time at brunch. Out of nowhere, he pulled me aside and said, "We're both survivors, man. We've seen too much, and people like us, we got to stick together." Cuba let out a bitter laugh. It sounded like support, but it felt like a warning. He leaned forward the moment my name came up. In this case, I knew I'd be dragged through the mud again. I knew they'd say I was just deflecting from my past, but I'm not deflecting. I'm owning it. He raised his hand, tears welling. I messed up. I hurt people. I touched someone without their permission. I pled guilty, served time, paid settlements. I did the work. And I still carry that shame. But what I'm talking about now goes beyond me. This is a system, a sickness, a machine that feeds on silence and thrives on fear. The prosecutor then displayed a series of photos, red carpets, events, snapshots where Cuba and Diddy stood side by side. "Do you remember this night?" they asked, pointing to one from 2014. Cuba nodded. "Yeah, that was the BET after party in Atlanta, the one with the basement club. What happened that night?" He hesitated. "There was a girl. She looked barely legal. Maybe not even that, dancing on a table." Diddy clapped, pointed at her a few minutes later. "Security had her in a side room. I never saw her leave the gallery stirred. One juror covered her mouth. Did you report it? Cuba shook his head. No, I didn't. I told myself she'd be fine, that it wasn't my place, that I didn't see anything clear enough, but deep down I knew. You see this industry from the outside and think everyone's living the dream, he said. But when you're inside, you realize the real currency isn't money, it's secrets. Cuba took a long breath. Diddy had secrets on everyone, and if he had something on you, you kept quiet, and if he didn't, you still kept quiet just in case. Then came one final question from the prosecutor. What do you want the world to take from your testimony? Cuba looked straight into the camera that was streaming live across the world and said slowly that the truth matters, that your past mistakes don't disqualify you from protecting others, and that if you stay silent long enough, you become part of the problem. I won't be part of the problem anymore. I was afraid I was selfish, but I'm not that man anymore. And if telling the truth now saves even one person, then maybe it's not too late. After the break, Cuba returned to the stand, steadier but still visibly emotional. I have to speak on this next part, he said, gripping the wood of the witness box, because I saw things that night I can't unsee, and I can't keep acting like I didn't. He described a weekend retreat in the Hollywood Hills, a supposed birthday celebration. Diddy flew us all in, no press, no phones, same old rules, but something felt different. There was tension, like everyone was waiting for something dark to unfold around midnight. The staff started handing out black and gold masks, said it was a themed party. I thought, okay, maybe it's just theatrics. But when I walked into the back wing of the house, it was something else. He stopped, swallowed hard. People were lined up like cattlemen, women barely dressed. Diddy stood in the center, like a king overseeing a ritual. It was quiet, too quiet, like evil had taken a vow of silence. I turned to leave, Cuba said, voice cracking. I didn't want any part of that, but I made the mistake of looking too long. One of Diddy's security guys cornered me near the hallway, got close, said, you didn't see anything, Gooding. That's the rule you want to keep working, right? I nodded. That's all I could do. I wasn't brave back then. The courtroom was frozen. No movement. No noise. Cuba looked down, ashamed. I've been silent for too long, and I know some people are going to say I'm doing this now to clean up my image or push a movie. I don't care if my testimony helps even one person. Then it's worth it. Every headline, every insult, every piece of backlash. Then he dropped a bomb. I saw people at that house that night. People now publicly pretending they knew nothing. Celebrities, executives, folks with families and empires, they looked the other way. And now they're saying they were in the dark. That's the lie that hurts most. He said, more composed but still visibly shaken. I watched that house turn into a graveyard of innocence, and I did nothing. I'm not going to make excuses anymore. I was complicit by staying quiet. Another story emerged, one that gutted the room at a party in Vegas. I saw a young woman being pulled down a hallway. I didn't know her name, but I saw her eyes. I saw her trying to signal me, and I did nothing. I just walked away. Cuba leaned into the mic. It keeps me up at night, because the truth is, there were dozens of those girls over the years, and we didn't ask questions. Nobody did. We were too scared, too selfish, too deep in the world. Diddy built. The prosecutor asked if he ever told anyone. Cuba nodded. I tried once in 2016. I called a lawyer friend, told him about the masks, the rituals, the silences. He told me to drop it. Said the NDAs would bury me. Said I'd be painted unstable because of my own charges, so I stayed quiet again. His voice steadied. But then Cassie came forward, then Lil Rod, and I realized I wasn't alone. I wasn't the only one with nightmares. I wasn't the only one carrying guilt. That gave me the courage to reach out to the prosecution to say, put me on the stand, I'll talk. Because if someone had done that for that girl in Vegas, maybe her story wouldn't be a cautionary tale. Now I'm not looking for redemption, he said quietly. That's between me and God. I'm looking for justice for the people who got hurt. For the names we'll never know, for the ones who never made it out of those houses. Then he turned toward the defense table where Diddy sat unmoved. I hope you hear this, Sean. I hope you remember every name, every scream, every party you turned into a prison. Because we remember now, and the truth is louder than your money. As the echo of his words filled the courtroom, the prosecution had one final question. What do you want the world to take from your testimony? Cuba stared straight ahead. That silence is a chain, and I broke mine. He continued, you don't have to be perfect to speak out. You just have to be honest. You just have to be done with the lies. Hollywood has a sickness, an addiction to power, and Sean, he was the dealer he made. People feel like gods, and in return they gave him loyalty. I know because I was one of them, and it cost me my career, my reputation, maybe even my soul. He adjusted in his chair. I lost years trying to rebuild what I broke in myself, and I'll never fully get that back, but I can be a witness, I can be a voice. Then suddenly the composure cracked. He cried not from guilt this time, but from relief. I can't keep carrying it. I can't keep pretending I didn't see what I saw. He stood unasked and addressed the room like a man delivering a confession to the world. I'm sorry, he said to the women, to the people who thought I was better, to the ones I didn't save. I'm sorry. He sat down, drained empty. The courtroom remained still. The silence was no longer a weapon but a witness, and the prosecutor simply said, "Thank you, Mr. Gooding," and rested the case. No more spin, no more speculation, just the truth, raw, human, and long overdue.